Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Twinstrology. We're doing part 2 of the invocation of the High Priestess energy. And welcome back to my guest, visionary psychic medium, Luisa Raso. Hey, Luisa, welcome back. Okay, so I was thinking that we would start by delving a little bit deeper into the High Priestess energy and what she represents. And we
Sure.
touched on this in the last video on how the High Priestess represents the embodiment of the goddess on earth. And we've already grounded the goddess energies, and that's why this energy is now coming in. So
that's correct, yeah.
If we think about the High Priestess energy, what it represents, the obvious thing is she trusts in her intuition.
Exactly. We've just got to look at the tarot card and the High Priestess in the tarot card. And there's a woman sitting there on her own. She stands on her own. You see that she has truth there. She trusts in her knowing, and she's got these two pillars, one dark and one light, which means I see her as a woman full of light. With that, though, she understands the dark. She's faced her fears. She's come out of the darkness and has transmuted the darkness into pure light again. And she is all about balance. Personally, for me, what I find with the High Priestess is it's not all light and love. You know what I mean? She gets down in the deep depths of darkness and gets into the dirty stuff and works through it. She's very powerful that she trusts in her own abilities and in her own light to shine through, to trudge through it and come out the other side wiser, stronger, but again, more loving. Mm-hmm. She's a woman of full respect and integrity. That's how, when I think of the High Priestess myself, she's always there wanting to better herself. But again, she's basically embodied through the goddess her inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it can tap into the universal wisdom, can tap into the energy of the universe. When we're in our High Priestess or High Priest, because we don't want to leave the men out, because the men, as we said in the last video, are able to embody this energy as well. It's when our wisdom comes through us. It's not something that we learn out of a book. We just allow the ancient wisdom to flow through us.
That's right. It is our own divinity. It is our own light. It's our spark, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's very much part of our life force.
Mm-hmm. And, well, the High Priestess is multidimensional. So when you're saying that she is not afraid to go into the dark, she's able to travel into all the worlds, including the underworld.
Exactly.
And we can think of like a shaman as being an aspect of the High Priestess as well. Mm-hmm. And, she's willing to go into the underworld to face her fears and heal her shadow. When you talked about the two pillars, the light and dark, taking two different energies and being able to bring them together.
Exactly.
Integrating them within, which we need to do to reach wholeness.
It's a very important aspect of to reach wholeness. You need to face your dark side, and you need to accept. It's about, we all have it within us, and it's about accepting it, working through it, understanding it, and releasing those parts that no longer serve us.
Mm-hmm. We have to be very compassionate when we're working with our dark side, and compassionate for ourselves. And we have to be at a certain level in our development because of that. Because when you start looking at your shadow and you start looking at these parts of yourself that you don't like, there's the possibility, if you've not healed enough, that you can really take that on yourself and see these things as being a part of you when they're really not. They don't represent who you are on a soul level. So we have to, while we're integrating them, we have to not let those things define us, is what I want to say.
Exactly.
So we don't internalize this darkness or these fears and shame ourselves.
Definitely not. Our dark side, it's, to me, they can come through emotional stuff we've experienced in this lifetime. Like, it could also be through embedded on a cellular level through past lifetimes. It could also even be not our stuff, but through our lineage itself that we're trying to break away from. That is an old thought programming that has brought about a fear within us. So it might not, that darkness that we hold on to might not even be ours. It could be on a collective level.
Yep.
Family lineage, past life, or an emotional trauma. There's so many different aspects to when we're dealing with our shadow self, because when we look through it and breathe through it and work through it, we realize it's nothing to be shamed. You need, as you said, that compassion for it.
And it's through that process that the real transformation happens, the real healing happens. And when we heal ourselves, we're better able to then go out and begin healing other people, which is another aspect of the High Priestess. She's really in service.
Of course. She's in service, and it's through love. She's powerful, but we've been taught with the old chaotic, distorted energy that we came in with, that power is all about control and manipulation. That's how we have viewed power, as in, authority, control, manipulation. When I think of the High Priestess and I think of power, I look at it as a strong force of respect, integrity, love, honouring yourself and honouring and helping others. That's how I view power. It comes from a space of love. Love to heal. That's what it's about. That's how I view power. I don't view it on its negative form that we have been programmed to believe, and when we all start seeing the truth behind power and how it can help, we will view it so differently, because we have been all taught that power is about fear. Power has been used in fear mode.
Yes. Yep. Very well said. Absolutely.
I'm having problems with lighting here, sorry.
So another thing that relates to this is the non-attachment. The High Priestess does not have attachment. to things in the material world. She's able to let it go because she realizes that everything is a cycle. There's a time for life and there's a time for death.
I agree with you. And attachment too is a very needy energy on any level, whether it's things, people, it's the wrong energy. And the High Priestess, she values everything. But as you said, she knows it's a constant flow of things change. We're always changing and moving forward because we are multidimensional and we can't stay stagnant. And the High Priestess does not fear change. She goes with the flow of change because she trusts that she is always protected.
Yes, and she trusts in her knowing.
Exactly.
Because the universe is guiding the High Priestess. She's hearing the messages of the universe, however they come through, whether they're actually words or whether they're signs and synchronicities. She's getting dreams, the message. Yes.
Dreams. Yeah.
And trusting.
All these little signs we get around in our day. And if I'll tell you right now, as you know yourself, with the High Priestess energy, if you're so busy in your day-to-day life, not listening to your intuition and listening to the signs around you, you'll get shown in dream state what needs to be changed. It's it's magnificent. It's such a beautiful, powerful energy to be working with and trusting.
The High Priestess is able to accept pleasure.
Definitely,
she's in touch with her sensuality. So, I mean, pleasure in the sense of just enjoyment of being alive, vitality, and embracing life and all life has to offer. But of course, the other side of pleasure, or something that we connect to pleasure, is sexuality. And the High Priestess is not afraid of her sexuality either, because she knows that sexuality is sacred and powerful and empowering, and it is not connected to sin, and it is not shameful.
Definitely. But that is what we have been programmed to believe for a very long time about it. But it is, what we're both discussing is the sacred sexual energy of, how can I put it?
Yeah, maybe I should clarify that I'm talking about sacred. I'm not talking about a series of one-night stands or just enjoying sex in a manipulative way, or in a needy energy of trying to control another person through your sexual energy. I'm talking about seeing sex as something sacred and honoring your body as a temple.
When you completely respect and honor your body and the person whom you are having sex with, it is on a completely different vibration. It comes from the heart center first. It is a heart connection, the sacred sexual energy. It doesn't come from the lower chakras.
Exactly.
It's the higher chakras.
Yes.
It's not about any form of self-gratification. It is completely different to it's the trust in it. As you said, it's not about the one night stand or the pleasuring in different ways. It is a sacred act.
When you open yourself to the pure energies of sexuality, this is one of the best ways to elevate your consciousness, when you can really connect with your partner and have that heart connection and that third eye connection. it's a completely different experience than how most people experience sex on a mundane level. Mm-hmm. It can't even compare.
Yeah, it's not empty.
But you have to work through your shadow enough to allow yourself to open to such an intense interaction with another person.
Exactly, because what you're working with is your deepest vulnerability and your mm-hmm. vulnerability behind it. And through love, that's where the power of the sacredness emerges.
Mm-hmm. A very ancient practice for the High Priestess. So the High Priestess, of course, sees past 3D illusions of the ego and is able to lift the veil. I guess that kind of goes with things that we've already talked about.
Yes.
The multidimensionality, the trusting in your knowing.
Yep. I'm just looking through my notes here.
The High Priestess doesn't need to seek validation from other people because Absolutely she's secure in herself.
Yeah. The High Priestess is very much about definitely not seeking validation from others. She has got her own way of doing things, her own style, her own grace. When you're sitting in that space, you're not jealous, you're not competing, and it's not only with women, but it's people in general. You feel comfortable in your own body. It's not about how others choose to see you. It's about you feeling comfortable and true to you. And when you're in that space, you're not seeking that neediness of how anybody chooses to see you, because all you are embodying is love, pure love.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. I think that's it.
This light's still shining.
Is there anything else that you want to add about the High Priestess energy that we haven't touched on?
I think we've touched on the shadow side, haven't we? Have we discussed how we've had to work with our own shadow, or
we could talk about that?
Do you want to touch on that? Yeah.
Well, for me, I've been working with embodying more of my High Priestess energy for about a year. And I think for each of us, Luisa, and why this is the perfect topic for us, is we both resonate with the High Priestess energy more than the goddess energy.
Exactly.
I've always felt that was in my energy field more. But okay, so I've been working on this for about a year, and I've had to heal a lot of persecution from the past. I've done a lot of past life work where I remember past lives, and go back and face those things that happened to me, because I've lost pieces of my soul due to those traumatic experiences, that pain, and the fear associated with being executed, basically. So yeah, and you've helped me with a lot of this, going back and doing that soul retrieval work, facing my shadow so that I could reclaim those lost pieces of myself.
And you've done the same with me throughout the last couple of years with my facing my dark shadow side. We've done a lot of work together, and you helping me clear a lot of my fears within myself and my aspects that I've needed to reintegrate back into myself to make myself whole. I just want to touch on whole quickly. We all are whole. We come in whole. Whole is an illusion. The way I see whole is not embracing, not retrieving all those little bits of ourselves back in, but in the ethers, we're still there. We've just got to bring them back in. But yes, you've helped me a lot through working a lot with my dark shadow side. And it's when we look at, okay, when we discuss dark shadow sides, there's so many different things that you can view about your shadow side. Mm-hmm. It can be insecurities. It can lead to around trust issues. It can lead to around jealousy issues, abandonment issues. That's what we are discussing about embracing the dark. And it's not something fearful as in some dark entity outside of ourselves. And that's what I want to make clear to people. We're talking about our dark side of all those negative traits of self-sabotage and self-loathing and all that sort of stuff. That is what you use the High Priestess energy to help clear that.
For me, I was afraid of my High Priestess energy because of lives where I was punished for embodying that energy. I became afraid of it, and I had to work through the fear so that I could fully embrace my own power. So it was a very important energy to work through.
Because we've known, and I understand exactly what you're saying, because when we first started discussing it, I'm sure it was a couple of years ago, right? Or was it a year ago? Time's just so... It
was about a year and a half ago, actually.
It's been a while, and with me, it was... I think we've both felt power. You know, we knew that the High Priestess was a powerful woman, and we're like... in past lives, how have we used this power? You know, it was a very destructive force. Now, what I do want to touch on is we've all come through for eons with a chaotic, destructive energy, right? And there have been past lives we may or may have not used power correctly. So when we have thought about ourselves and the High Priestess energy, we had gone into a bit of panic mode of, do we really want to reintroduce this into our energy field because she is so powerful? Until we sat with it for a very long time and gone, hang on, but in this new energy, she is full of love. She always has been love. Mm-hmm. It is the illusion, the deception behind it that we have felt that she was some dark force. Mm-hmm. Right? When you view now, and this is why I feel right now that it is re-emerging in our 3D reality again so strongly, is because we have cleared so much of that chaotic energy from the from our energy field. The vibration of the planet has lifted. We can now reintroduce it back to work with it correctly for how it is meant to be used, because as you said, with past lives and your persecution and all that, you were doing nothing wrong. You weren't doing anything wrong, but you were persecuted for standing in your own truth. That's what it was all about. Me, it was about standing in my own truth. And chaotic energy wants to disempower you. That's what chaotic energy is about, disempowering. But when you move past that and you're working through your heart space and your third eye, because all our third eyes, as we've discussed in the first part, is activating, you will clear that thought process that it is a corrupt energy. It is a very loving energy, and it is a very healing energy. Mm-hmm.
So maybe we want to go more into the persecution. In this lifetime, I'll just say that I was brought up very religious. My family was Christian. I went to church every week. I went to Sunday school every week. And the things that I'm doing now, astrology and doing readings for people, would have been frowned on. Both my parents are deceased now, but my mother would have frowned on these things. And so that played a lot into my fear of embracing this power, because I had to work through this idea that I was doing something wrong and that I was going to be punished at some point for doing it, which of course stemmed from also these many past lives where I was persecuted and, called a witch, and burned at the stake a couple times, which
I'm sure
a lot of people have experienced that. What's that?
I said, I'm sure I was holding your hand in those lifetimes too, Marla, right by your side. Good, we can joke about it now. Yep.
I know. And we have to kind of make light of it at this point, because we worked through the fears around it. And the fears are real, even though they're not from this life. And many of you will not remember the specific past lives where these things happen to you, but you still have this fears, or you're dealing with phobias because you've suffered persecution in the past.
Exactly. And it stays embedded in our cellular level, in our DNA, until it comes up, different stages, and we clear it slowly, bit by bit. To me, it's like an onion, okay? Skin, and the onion skin falls away bit by bit, and we go, okay, I think we worked with this. And then something else, bang, happens, and it's like, okay, more and more layers are coming away. And as I said, it sits in our DNA for a very long time until we are ready to shift it.
Yeah, some of this can be very traumatic, so you have to be,
definitely,
your healing is going to go in stages to make sure that you're not faced with something that's beyond your capability to handle it.
Exactly, that's right, and that's why it has to work that way. Because we sometimes do feel that, okay, I'm going to heal this, I'm going to clear it, it's over and done with. It does not work that way. It has to come in stages.
Yeah.
And each stage, I feel, I can only speak for myself, but I think you've gone through the same thing. Each stage, the purging isn't as hard, is it? The purging takes less and less to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we should touch on too. Well, do you have anything that you want to add about your past lives?
It's not mostly about my past lives. Like I know I've had lots of past lives of persecution. I felt it and stuff like that. But I look back at this life. Now, I've got beautiful, loving family. But I have also got a very, not my immediate parents, but close family that are very religious. And what I'm doing, it is like my head spinning around, seriously. So in this lifetime, it's about...
You're still being persecuted, basically, in a way.
Yeah.
You're being judged.
I just go, I just look at it, and it's not as if everyone's been nasty or hurtful or anything like that. Absolutely not. I'm left to do what I need to do, but it is... You just need to stand and believe in yourself and in your own truth and find your own light, basically. And it's about, you need to first have integrity to yourself. And this is what this journey of bringing in the High Priestess is about. Like, as you know yourself, when you introduce yourself to people and they say, what do you do for work? And it's like, I'm a psychic. You get judged straight away, as in, there's a fear in some people's eyes. Not all, but in some it's like, oh, wow, okay. until they actually get to know you as a person and go, wow, okay, this person is lovely. But it's the stereotype of our work that I feel personally with this energy of change, and I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but with this energy of change is going to shift for a lot of people's consciousness to make them aware that it's not dark. And when we're talking about High Priestess energy, we're not only talking about it's people finding any type of power within, right? Finding their truth within. This energy is going to shift people so much in the awakening process. That's how I view it. Because we're talking about the goddess in the last couple of years was about opening that heart up, you know, that big shield that we've all had covering that heart and not wanting to be vulnerable and soft. That's a horrible thing to be, you know. It's a weakness. And we're looking at it now going, you know what? Being vulnerable and open and having that heart open, whether it gets crushed or not, it is empowering, right?
Yes.
Now with this new light coming through and coming through our third eye, what we're seeing is people are starting to awaken on a mass level to their truth. It's like, and I feel for some, not all, like we've been going through the process a while now, but for some what I feel is it could be spontaneous. For others, it might be over a couple of months that they start, that veil has come away and they start viewing their whole life from a different light. It's like they've taken those dark shades off and they're seeing the light, and it's like, who am I? What is this? And that there, I'll tell you right now, it's got a lot to do with this High Priestess energy of re-emerging to your truth.
Yes. And that's why we're here, not just me and you, but light workers are emerging to stand in their truth, to be a guide, to say, yeah, it's okay to stand in your truth. It's okay to show your heart and to be vulnerable.
Yep.
And
you're not
that's
going
the High
crazy here.
Energy.
It's normal. Yeah.
And so, and getting on your mission, I'm sure many of our viewers have experienced that as light workers or contemplating doing their mission, and how are they going to be reacted to by their friends and family? I know it was a big fear when I started this channel and I started doing videos. I was terrified of what people were going to think of me.
Yeah. Likewise, it was like when I first told some of my family members, not all, that what I am, and like I've been psychic, mind you, working professionally for over 20 years, and there's still fear 20 years down the track of what Luisa does, until you sit with them and you go, but look at this, and they go, oh, okay. But it's still that program, and I absolutely love and respect them. And I can understand it's not something I can change within them. They have to face that fear within themselves and see it for what it truly is. We can only guide. The rest, it's a work in progress for each and every one of us. Like you and I have had to face our fears. Even though I've gone up to you many times, Marla, I don't know how to deal with this. What do I do? And it's like you could go over and over and over until one day I've gone, and you've gone, yeah, I've been telling you this for a while. You know what I mean? It's that kind of
it's that tipping point where you finally get something, because you can't understand something that your vibration is not ready to embrace.
You have to be ready. To take it on board and surrender. It's getting to a point with the ego. Now, the ego is very important. It has an important role on many different aspects, but there are also layers of the ego that need to go, because the ego is there to show us about danger, but it's getting rid of those finer outer layers that we don't need, that's connected to fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that someone can hold your hand, someone can guide you, someone can't do it for you. So we can help, light workers can help guide and be there of service like that. But the work, that nitty-gritty work, it's done within.
Yeah. Like you can go to a healer, you can get tons of healing, but that can only do so much. You got to shift yourself. And I think that's so important right now, because so many people have done so much healing, but now you got to take the action.
It's now integrating
changes in your life.
Exactly.
And you've got to start living your truth and walking your talk.
And that, out of everything on a personal journey for myself, out of everything that's come to light, and my biggest fear was, how do people perceive me? Funny fear to have, but it's how do people perceive me? And I'm like, doesn't matter. I have to like me. It's about me liking me, loving me, and acceptance of who I am on all different levels, warts and all, and going, you know what? I'm okay. I'm an okay human being. And when you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? I love you for you, who you are right at this very moment, you know you've healed a lot.
Definitely. I remember when I first started this journey, and I would do that mirror exercise, where you look in the mirror and you say, I love you.
Yep.
I couldn't do it without crying for a few weeks,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But what a change now. And so totally worth it.
Yeah.
So let's just touch briefly on when we really started dealing with our shadow integration. We both had experiences where one of the quote darker goddesses came to us. I mean, we both work with the goddess energy, and we both have patron goddesses. But then, as most people experience, these other goddesses or gods will step in as needed to work with you. So for me, that was Hecate.
Yeah, that's right. And for me, it was Lilith.
Mm-hmm.
And when you face your shadow and you go, wow, you know what? That's not scary at all. You look back and go, I have learnt so much. I have received so much downloads of wisdom by integrating and understanding this goddess, that I don't need to hold on to the negative aspects of her. Because when you look at those darker goddesses and you go past what made them like that, you see the light and you get a deeper understanding of why they react, or why they have reacted and come about a certain way. And you have compassion and respect for their journey.
Well, on some level, they're showing you an aspect of yourself.
Exactly. They're showing you an aspect of yourself that you're needing to heal and clear and work real hard through. That's why they're there. To go, okay, there's this little niggling thing here. You're going so well in all these other little areas of your life, but hang on. You're not dealing with the shadow side. So you don't want to work with it? The universe source says to you, we're going to make you now work with it, because it's time. It's time to heal. And that's the thing too with this energy. and I think you discussed it in the first video too, it is so powerful, and we're all going through major change here, that with free will, with some things, we have got sections that, we can work on a little bit here and there. But when it's time on a divine timing level and we have to get things done, the universe is going to go, okay, no more, right, you're going to deal with this right now, whether you want to or not. And it's always fun because I have been personally, as you know, me quite well, just a little bit of a control freak when it comes to my own personal life. Not controlling others, it's just I like things in place. And the universe just smacks me in the face all the time going, no, Luisa, we've given you a chance. And now we're going to do it. We're going to show you how it's done.
Yes. And those darker goddesses, you don't tell them no. You don't say I don't feel like it today.
Yeah, I'm learning, Marla. Yeah, you just don't say no to them. You have to work through that shadow side whether you choose to or not, and embrace it. And you heal so much. Once you get over the other side of it, it's like, wow. This is
really
awesome.
is. And you get that level of empowerment that you've been wanting.
And it's all what comes out of the other side of it. It is more love for yourself, love for others, but a different level of compassion and understanding for humanity. Mm-hmm. That's what I've noticed, and I feel that you feel the same way. We have you walk through that darkness and you have got more compassion within, more humility.
Yep. Totally agree.
Because the High Priestess is all about service.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should talk a little bit more about where we lost this High Priestess energy. And the reason I said quote unquote dark goddesses is because, these goddesses in other time periods were very powerful, very respected goddesses that were primarily worship goddesses. They weren't fringe goddesses, and they weren't something that people were just afraid of. But that was lost around the time of the rise of religion, the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And we're not here to criticize those religions, but it's part of our history that
definitely
we have to face that as part of our healing.
Definitely, yes. It's an old template that is starting to crumble because it's disempowering people. When people start thinking for themselves and trusting their own guidance, their own divinity, they don't realise until a later date that they've actually been persecuted themselves for being programmed a certain way in a belief system. Mm-hmm. When they take on board and start freely thinking, it would lift so much hurt and unworthiness and feeling betrayed, and that not for themselves but for their whole ancestry, because it's been like this for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it wasn't, as you said earlier, it wasn't that anyone was doing anything wrong that we were suddenly persecuted, but it was an attempt by people in authority to disempower us, especially to disempower women, because the patriarchy feared the feminine energy, And as you were saying, when you're in your intuition and you're knowing, you can't be controlled because you see through lies and manipulation.
Exactly. And it was taken away in, as we've said, both men and women. It's not only the women that were persecuted through this, it was the men as well had been persecuted on so many different levels for not being able to think and feel for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the high priest energy that we mentioned, and basically anyone that wasn't that they weren't able to control suddenly got labeled. And the way that the energy of the high priest and the high priestess got labeled was turned from being someone that was venerated by their society that they were living in, their community. They now became known as witches, and they were given this dark energy, affiliated with things like Satan and evil doing. And that's been a very painful part of our history that is going to be, that is starting to and will continue to come up for clearing. We've got to face this.
Yeah. Exactly. We do need to face that dark side and the lies and the distorted verbalization I'm being told. It's the stories that have been told over and over, the mistruths about the high priestess energy. And it's all about the wisdom and standing in your truth instead of being disempowered and listening to a group of people outside of yourself. It's always drawing you back into you.
There's still many people that buy into this idea that witches exist. And, well, of course witches exist. People practice witchcraft. People that practice witchcraft, it doesn't mean that they're affiliated with the devil or that they're doing anything wrong. The majority are light workers, they're healers, they're in tune with nature. But this programming is still running, and many people, and I personally have gotten several messages accusing me of being a witch and threatening me, etc. So it's still very much alive, this program.
Yeah, it's shameful. But when we look back in history about witches, it was anyone that didn't believe in the one God.
Sometimes even people that did believe in the one God. But if you were a healer or you were using your intuition, that was seen as contrary.
If you're using your intuition, you could be a woman rolling down a hill, okay, and there would be something wrong with you and you would be classed as a witch, right? Yeah. You could be gardening, making your own creative things, and because you were expressing yourself, that's what it's all about, self-expression, creativity.
Yeah.
You were classed as a witch.
Or some other, going against the grain in some other way. Even as simple as having a mole that someone didn't like. You could suddenly be blamed for whatever misfortunes were befalling people or the community. So
that's right.
It really has no basis in any kind of reality.
Yeah, but it's as we've discussed, it is old programming that is starting to shift. And as people are starting to step into, as they've stepped already into their heart space, and that's still integrating in a lot of people, because people are still scared of being so open and vulnerable because it's a scary thing. It's not, hey, within myself, like, Luisa opening her heart space. I don't want people to see who I am. I don't want them to see my soft, vulnerable side. Are you serious, Mama? Like, how long has it taken for me to, and it's not that I was a horrible person. It was just like, I don't want people to see me because I was scared of any form of rejection, which comes down to me caring, being needed to be validated by others, right? So I'm getting somewhere here. That's the energy we've been working with up until now, is the opening the heart space and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. This energy here now will then clear so much of the old, and I don't want to use the term Christianity because it's not just Christianity. It is anything.
We can say patriarchal, maybe.
That's the right word in there. We'll start clearing that, because the more people that start trusting in their own abilities, which is going to happen. This is where the energy's leading us, right? We'll open the doors that people will start viewing things differently and going, no more. No more. It's like everyone's, I think we've discussed it like a rebuke. Is that how we worded it?
Yeah, that's it. You channeled that last night. That's how it came through.
Yeah, that people are going to go no more, and they're going to start re-emerging and remembering who they really are. This is what it's coming down to. It's about us remembering who we truly are and going, you know what? I'm not horrible inside. I'm not this ugly energy inside. I'm this pure light, and I have a voice, and I'm going to speak and speak my truth through love. And this is where we're all leading. We're all getting to that place of, it's shifting, Mala. We feel it. We can feel it within ourselves. We see it around people around us. It's shifting, and it is such an exciting time to be alive now through this major shift in awareness and consciousness. People are stepping into their power correctly, into their truth.
And they have to get rid of this old program in order to clear these energies, I feel, to really step into their truth. And there's a multitude of ways that this energy can hinder you. So I won't go into all that, but there's elements that need to be cleared, and we have to accept everybody and not just label people with a broad brush or stereotype people.
And you know what's beautiful is I love seeing, and you're the same, people for who they truly are, their uniqueness. It's their uniqueness that makes them beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, copying other people, that's not living in your light or in your knowing. That's not High Priestess energy. That's following a herd. Being, you know, your own personal self, whether it's somebody's taste or not, whether the way you laugh, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself, the way you talk, your uniqueness makes you beautiful.
Yep.
And it's about, if people find it hard to, because there has been so much negative aspect around the word High Priestess, if people invoke it and embrace it in a way of, I'm being me, I'm listening to my heart and my knowing and just being me, that's a huge step in the right direction. That's all people are needing to do right now, is just start loving their own quirky uniqueness.
There was something that I wanted to say, and of course it went out of my head.
Sorry.
No, not your fault.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's not going to come back. Okay, so where was I going? All right, help me out, Luisa, because now I'm like brain dead. It's 12 o'clock here.
If you're brain dead, that's all good. It just means probably we have gone through a lot here and got a lot of the message out. When I go brain dead,
I wanted you to touch on. You know, we're calling this video "Invocation of the Goddess." So let's touch on what we mean by invocation. Not the goddess, the High Priestess.
That's all right. Well, she's the goddess grounded. So you are right there. That's what the High Priestess is. It is the goddess grounded in the 3D earth plane. So, sorry, what was the question again?
How are people to invoke the High Priestess energy?
Okay, there are so many different ways of calling her in. Just asking, basically. Now, I don't see, this is a little tip for people. If you start seeing the High Priestess energy, in this light, it just, this gold light above me, if you view the High Priestess as a part of you and not something external, it is so much easier. So the High Priestess is already within us all, men and women. It's a quality of us. So calling upon it is just believing in yourself. And if we start viewing it as an aspect outside of ourselves, we're going to have a hard time bringing it in. Because what we're doing is grounding our own High Priestess energy within our own body here. So for me, what did I say to you before? Because now I've lost it.
Well, I would say, though, that for me personally, when I first started working with this, and the High Priestess energy came to me from the very beginning of my spiritual awakening. And I had some flashbacks of a past life where I was a High Priestess in Egypt. Mm-hmm. And for a while, I saw that energy as outside of myself. And that part of me would come to me and speak to me, but I wasn't able to fully integrate her. That's what I meant when I was talking about soul retrieval before and integrating lost parts of myself. This is an example. This High Priestess energy within me was not fully integrated in my energy field. So
we see it as a separation from us. That's what it is.
I saw it as something outside of me, but eventually working with that energy, and I had to heal another past life that finally allowed that part of me to integrate, because I was very powerful in that life. And it was hard for me, and I'm talking about 5 years ago too, hard for me to see myself as being strong and empowered, and I wasn't in that energy myself. So some of our viewers, we're going to have viewers that are at all different places in their journey. Many are ready to integrate this, but some that are just waking up maybe need to do some more healing before they can integrate it. So I do understand what you're saying totally, that it is part of us, but you may not be ready to accept that part of yourself until you've healed something.
Of course. So different ways would be then asking guidance from your higher self to help integrate her. If you're one to do praying, there are so many different ways, but healing, going definitely through your anxiety and your trigger issues, and being able to step into that dark place and working through your shadow self is so important with helping to integrate your High Priestess.
Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself a little bit
Exactly.
and see yourself from a very objective viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
So that you can see the understand your triggers and
definitely and
understand
that's
the
so
energy
true. That is true
trying to come up from your shadow.
Exactly, because I know myself, for myself and with my work too, is when I've dealt with people that have dealt with trauma on some level, I've always said to them, okay, now that moment that you're having and you're needing to breathe into a paper bag because you're hyperventilating here and you're about to pass out, view yourself, that emotion, that attachment, as not belonging to you. And it is actually something outside of yourself for a minute. Review it. But you need to sit in it at the same time of reviewing it, because if you're then detaching completely from it and not sitting in that space, you lose that moment. So it's about sitting there. You're possibly crying and you're having a panic attack, but you're viewing it. You will then see it differently and you're able to work with it and go, wow, okay. So that's where that stems from. Okay, I know where I need to work on and what I need to work on to help clear it. And you know what? If you're anything like me, it takes a little while to let it go, because I have suffered lots of anxiety issues and panic attacks and stuff like that in the past. And I find now going through that process, and it's all about acceptance of, okay, why am I feeling this? When you can go there and go, why am I feeling this? And then sit there and work through it, it clears. But every time you're clearing, you're allowing more of that light to come down. Yeah. That's the key. It's every single trigger that you purge and release, you're grounding more of you.
I think that might be what I wanted to say before was, as we head into this Sagittarian full moon, what's going to be coming up for a lot of people are issues around that patriarchal control and that energy of calling people witches and casting them in an evil light, that being persecuted for speaking your truth, being persecuted wrongly. And it's in our DNA and it's in our ancestry. And there's going to be DNA activations helping bring these things to the surface.
That's right.
Now, going back, I would suggest a way of invocation is you can call on the goddesses to help you.
Exactly.
Isis is my patron goddess, and I worked with her almost from the beginning. And Isis, to me, totally embodies the energy of the High Priestess as well as a goddess. She's both. So you can call on her or other goddesses. Sometimes it's best to let a goddess choose you. And if you just sit with your energy and you ask for help, the right goddess will be shown to you.
I totally agree there, yes.
Yeah, so that's another way of doing it.
Too. It's not always the feminine goddess that comes through. It's some of the different masculine gods that come through and help us to balance it out as well.
True.
Like I personally, through my journey of so many years, have worked with Merlin. And he's one of my favourites that I've got to deal with aspect of myself. He'll pop into my energy field. I'm like, okay, right, I've got to deal with this. Like you've had your masculine gods help you as well.
Yes, I'm connected to Odin. And Odin has helped me to really reclaim empowerment, to overcome my fears, and helping me to take my fears and turn it around and use it as something to inspire me to go further instead of letting that fear, make me freeze and go backwards because I'm afraid. It's like, no, take that fear and use it to, how like if you're angry or something, you can turn that energy around and use it to drive you on.
That's right. And this is where I think it's so important to the men out there listening. It's not about, because they'd be thinking, hey, hang on, so I'm going to have to call on some woman here, some chick to help me through this. No, there are so many strong, beautiful, powerful, masculine, male, like gods, that if that's the way you want to go about it, you can call upon them to help you through issues, anxiety issues and trauma and stuff like that. Because as we're balancing both aspects within ourselves, and they're just as important.
I think it depends on what inner energy you're working with. Like when it was time for me to increase my masculine energy, that's when Odin came to me.
Exactly.
So if you're in a male body and you're needing to increase your feminine energy, then you may have a goddess come to you to help you with that.
So true. So true. Like, it's funny, like through my journey, I've had goddess Ishtar working with me, help balance me, but I've also had Merlin. And it's funny, we've got the male plus the female, and it doesn't mean that they're the same qualities, they're just different aspects of ourselves within that we need to heal and integrate.
Yes, exactly. I think that's it. Is there anything else? I think so. We've gone over an hour.
I think so, yes.
Great. Luisa, I forgot to ask you this in the last video. Tell people how they can find you.
Okay. I have my own page, and it's called Luisa Raso, and that's where I have only started opening it up, thanks to the help of Marla pushing me, in the last, I think, couple of weeks. And I'm going to start doing my channeled messages there, because I do channel with the Galactic Federation of Light, and also just other things that I do channel. So, yeah, that's where you'll find me. Thanks so much, Marla.
Yeah, and I can link to your Facebook page in the notes if people want to check you out there.
Oh, thank you. That'll be lovely. I'm using my phone for everything at the moment. I'm very computer savvy.
Me either. All right, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Marla.
Maybe there'll be a part 3. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, guys. We love you, and talk to you soon.